live. Welcome, everyone, to episode 214 of the FM Marks podcast. And I am the solo one this week, but every week I'm the brainless one. Cousin Jay is going to be taking this week off, so you will be going on the brainless journey into professional wrestling this week. I have quite a bit that I'd like to discuss in regards to this week's episode. We have ourselves tag team champions for Monday Night Raw between Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa for Dynamite this week. We also had a very important match last night as WWE Hall of Famer Edge took on Jey Uso, and the winner was supposed to be the enforcer for tomorrow night's Fastlane main event for the Universal Championship, and other bits and pieces of professional wrestling going for this week. So quite a bit to talk about. What's up, Jessica? I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. So yeah, for only like the second time I've ever gone live by myself. So we're going to see how this goes. Like I said, welcome to the Brainless Experience. All right. The first thing I wanted to talk about was something that Jay and I had discussed last week during the podcast, and that was reports that Andrade had actually requested his release from WWE, and he came out this week and confirmed that he did actually request his release from WWE. WWE is not cooperating. He just seems to he'll be happier outside of WWE. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes going forward. The ironic part about Andrade actually coming out and confirming it was earlier this week. I want to say it was either Wednesday or Thursday, marked the 1-year anniversary of when Matt Hardy and the late great Brody Lee both debuted for AEW. Matt Hardy, obviously, he opted out when he had the chance to leave WWE. And Brody Lee had requested his release when he was Luke Harper. They kind of extended his contract and didn't even book him or anything like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting that the whole Andrade thing came out at the same time as the 1-year anniversary of those guys debuting for AEW after leaving WWE. It's going to be interesting to see going forward how this gets handled. Quite frankly, I don't know. It's like it's very WWE is very petty these days, and I don't see how this is going to change or where it's going to go going forward. And it looks like from the F and Marks, and last I hear, Matt is trying to convince Jeff to leave as well. I never thought that the Jeff Hardy sign was a smart one. Yeah, it was kind of nice to have him do that thing where they came out at WrestleMania. I think it was WrestleMania 33, if I'm not mistaken, when they entered into the ladder match to win the Raw Tag Team Championships. And like when Matt left, I was kind of surprised that Jeff kind of hung around the way he did. Jeff really has been booked very properly. I really didn't like that storyline that they did with him and Sheamus, where they kind of took his whole DUI thing and took it to that level that they did. So that's really all I can say about the whole Jeff and Matt and all that stuff. Jeff, I know, did just re-sign with WWE for a few more years, so it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to get out of that contract as well. All right, let's see what else. It's also been reported that Rhea Ripley, actually I think it was today, Rhea Ripley will be making her debut on the main roster for Monday Night Raw this upcoming Monday. What she's going to be doing, I have no idea. My guess is she'll be having a match with somebody probably like Lana or somebody like that, just to kind of get her acclimated to the main roster and everything. It'll be interesting to see what happens and how they book Rhea Ripley. If you are a fan of the podcast and if you've turned in on more than one occasion, or if you're somebody who's been in almost every single episode, Jay could definitely attest to this. I'm always skeptical about what happens with guys that come up from NXT because WWE doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. Vince is just old and senile, and he doesn't know how to book these people properly. Like we're seeing it now with just like Keith Lee. And in fact, just think about those two that actually came up recently between Keith Lee and Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle went on. He's now the United States champion. He's getting television exposure every week. Keith Lee came in. He was on fire. He had victories. He had a clean victory over Randy Orton at whatever the hell the pay-per-view was. I want to say it was the one that was a week after SummerSlam, which was stupid that they did it that quickly. I just, Keith Lee was red hot. He had that great Survivor Series 99, not 19, not 20. And they just really haven't done anything with him. And I have no idea why he's been off television. Even his wife, Reckoning from the, whatever the hell, the shit. Why am I having a Retribution? Why am I having a brain? Oh, that's right. Brainless one. Just the way that Retribution has, with her, at least she's been getting exposure. I have no idea what the hell's going on with Keith Lee. I have no idea what WWE has issues with, whoever they have issues with, but who the hell knows? So I really don't know what to expect. Rhea Ripley would be an interesting choice to possibly face Asuka at WrestleMania because I think her and Asuka would have a great match. And with that being said, other news is that Charlotte, who was initially in the promo for WrestleMania 37, has been taken out of it. There's a lot of people are speculating it's because of the fact there's been a TV show that she's been kind of attached to. I want to say it was one of those stupid WWE related ones, or it was whatever it was. She signed on to do a television show, so there's a possibility that she's going to be filming that while missing out at WrestleMania this year, which would make things interesting considering, it was supposed to be her versus Lacey Evans for the WWE Raw Women's Championship. And then it looked like they were definitely building towards her and Asuka for the championship. Now, if Charlotte's not in it, I'd like to see somebody like Rhea Ripley get in there. I'd like to see somebody like even Peyton Royce, who's been, clamoring for a shot and an opportunity. I wouldn't even mind seeing Lana do it, if I'm being honest. But, we only have like a little more than a month to go before WrestleMania, and the card really hasn't been filled out the way it is. The Walking Tall remake, that's what it was. She's going to be taking over Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's role in that movie. I for the life of me, I didn't remember what the hell it was. And what we got here? Well, Jessica, with that, it's interesting you bring that up because there's even been talk that even Shane could possibly take over for Vince once Vince is ready to step down and completely get away from the WWE spotlight and all that stuff. I like what Triple H has been doing for NXT. Believe me, I've been a huge fan of it. NXT is my favorite program every single week to watch. It's very dreadful trying to go through 3 hours of Raw every single Monday, especially because A, it's Monday, and B, 3 hours of crappy wrestling is just not fun to get through. But like once NXT is on Wednesdays, I enjoy watching it. I think it's going to definitely open up things for me if NXT does decide to continue on with the move to Tuesdays. Then I can be freed up for AEW. But to go back to your point, Vince should have retired years ago. He's really out of touch. He's kind of like in the old Jim Cornette mindset where it's, he's really hell-bent on the meatheads being the champions and everything like that, and not even the guys who can actually wrestle and everything. I think that it should be Triple H. I think that Shane would be a better option than Vince. And I mean, hell, who am I kidding? One of my dogs out there could actually be a better person to run the WWE than Vince McMahon. And, there's just a lot of stuff that's going on, and it is what it is. So we got that's that. All right. So what else could we talk about before we get to all the main things? Oh, WrestleMania. Let's talk about WrestleMania for a little bit. That sounds like a great idea. So WrestleMania was supposed to have their tickets come out on Tuesday. It was for pre-sale for WrestleMania tickets, and they didn't know how many people they were going to try to have for capacity. Well, unfortunately, we had a outbreak of another COVID outbreak at NXT at the Performance Center, so they kind of paused how that was going to happen. They moved back the selling date to, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, and then they announced that they're only going to have 27,000 people for both nights of WrestleMania. So 27,000 on Saturday, 27,000 on Sunday. I think it's great that they're going to have these people in there. I really do think that they should have people who are vaccinated. Just putting that out there. because you don't want to have some kind of an outbreak, And I know a guy who's vaccinated. See what I did there? I think it's good that they're doing this. They really need the fans in there. I think that it's going to be a different element to it. Just the fact that we haven't had fans at WWE shows for over a year, it'd feel really good to just see them come out there and get that ovation and everything. And WrestleMania, and no disrespect to the Super Bowl, WrestleMania is my favorite night of the year. There's something about WrestleMania, and I can sit here and I can clamor on and just pound my fist on the table, or if I was at the normal podcast room, pound my against the wall and everything. But at the end of the day, I still love watching WrestleMania. It's my favorite thing to watch every single year. And I do like the 2 nights this year. And for me, just the experience of having the fans there, that it will make it a lot more interesting and more enjoyable, in my opinion. So it looks like Jey chimed in and said they're going to be taking tests of people with tickets before they even let them in the door. I think that's a tremendous idea. You gotta sit there. You gotta hit them with the scanner to check their temperatures. Make sure they're not having any of the symptoms, haven't come into contact with anybody who is having any of the symptoms. You can't risk it getting any worse than it is for WWE in regards to like the coronavirus. I have all the faith in the. I mean, I keep saying that I have all the faith in the world in WWE, but we'll see how they handle that situation. Speaking of WrestleMania, yesterday they announced that they are. Jessica, that's interesting. That they're only going to be taking credit cards instead of money and Apple Pay, etc. So that's good because that's money is one way to actually transfer the virus from person to person. I noticed that a lot of places are actually doing that where they're not accepting cash. They're only taking cards. So it really doesn't surprise me that that's what WWE is going to be doing. But so speaking of WrestleMania, it was announced yesterday that we will have 2 co-hosts for WrestleMania 37 on April 10th and 11th. And no, it's not going to be Jey and I, unfortunately. We tried. Instead, we will be getting Titus O'Neil and Hulk Hogan. Insert whatever joke you want to put in there, brother. I had a conversation with my buddy Corey about this yesterday, and he thinks it's kind of silly that they actually have hosts at WrestleMania every single year. And I'm actually on board with what he said. I really don't like the idea of having hosts of WrestleMania every single. It kind of takes away from the actual in-ring performers and everything. Like, do we really need Hulk Hogan there? I mean, I like Titus O'Neil, and it's better for him to do that and a lot of people were applauding that Titus O'Neil was going to be the guy who's going to be hosting it with Hulk Hogan and everything. But do we really need hosts? Do we really need Gronk there last year? No, we really didn't. It wasn't enjoyable having Gronk there last year. And then it all started with The Rock when he came out. I think it was WrestleMania 27, so that he could insert himself into a match with John Cena at WrestleMania 28. But I think the whole host thing has kind of just been played out. It was kind of a nice nostalgic thing, back in the day when you had people, when all the celebrities would come out and everything like that. Why is Hulk Hogan there? If Hulk Hogan's there, the only thing that he is good for is the fact that that he's going to call Raymond James Stadium or wherever. I forget where the Bucks play. He's probably going to call it like the Big Sombrero or some shit like that. I mean, Jey, I can't argue. I really can't argue with that. Both being Tampa natives makes a lot of sense for them. So there's not a lot of travel for the two of them. And Titus being a spokesman for most of WWE's charity. I love what Titus O'Neil has been doing for WWE. I am a huge fan of his, what he is doing for the kids and all the charity work and, just being an ambassador for WWE. He is killing that role. I'm so happy that he is doing what he is doing. But I still think like having hosts is just, no. And the only other thing that they could save face with Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan needs to win the 24/7 title from Bad Bunny or whoever the hell the champion is heading into WrestleMania. I hope it's not Bad Bunny because it's stupid. But that's that. And one last, excuse me. And one last thing before I wanted to get into some actual wrestling for this week is we have a second inductee in the WWE Hall of Fame, and that is one Eric Bischoff. It was announced this week that Eric Bischoff is going to be the second inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame. And look, you know, Jay and I go on for weeks, months, years even, talking about who should and shouldn't be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And I joke about it all the time. And, you know, it's kind of sad that I have to I did not know that. I am sorry. I did not realize that R-Truth has the 24/7 title, and because Bad Bunny gifted it to him on Raw. Well, call that a brainless moment. But Eric Bischoff, if you think about what he has meant for the wrestling industry, Eric Bischoff is, to this day, the only person who was actually able to beat Vince McMahon at the ratings war. And back in the mid to late 90s, when WCW was going up against WWE and Raw, Nitro and everything, and just like they were cranking in all the ratings and everything, Eric Bischoff was at the forefront of all of that. He was the face of WCW. He was the face of the NWO. Eric Bischoff is a visionary. He did some great things there. And I'll tell you, wrestling was at its peak when Eric Bischoff was running WCW, and WCW was kicking Vince McMahon's ass for probably, I want to say, for like close to 2 years before he got a little too big for his britches, I guess would be the best way to put it, because he liked to go out there because Raw wasn't live. It was taped every single week. So Eric Bischoff would have his commentators announce what was happening on Raw. In case you feel like turning the channel from Nitro, just to let you know, it's like this, and this would happen. And like he did a lot of things. He took the bumps. He got himself involved in the NWO. He convinced Alundra Blaze, when she became Medusa, to drop the WWF Women's Championship in the trash live on Nitro. And that's still, to me, during the Monday Night Wars, was one of the most iconic moments, considering just watching Bobby Heenan's face as Medusa dropped the WWF Women's Championship in the trash. Because, like, even Heenan know, like, you don't do stuff like that. And Eric Bischoff did also bury WCW by announcing that Mick Foley was about to become WWE champion for the first time. And that was where the big switch happened. And he never recovered from that. That and the bad contracts and giving all the wrestlers their own creative control and everything, they were just doomed from the beginning. And, you know, never in the strongest case of never say never, Eric Bischoff did come to WWE to run Monday Night Raw, and he was there for quite a few years. And Eric Bischoff, whenever they need him, you know, in a pinch, he has come in and done, you know, he's done like the table for threes, and he's done all the other stuff on the soon-to-be former network and everything. Well deserving. Eric Bischoff belongs in the WWE Hall of Fame. So, a couple of notes really quickly in regards to Monday Night Raw. The first thing is that they announced for WrestleMania, not even having a match for it, they have announced that we will be getting Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. Now, my whole reasoning that I have an issue with all of this is that Drew McIntyre has a match with Sheamus tomorrow at Fastlane. Sheamus and Drew McIntyre should be fighting for the number one contendership to fight Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania. That's how you're supposed to do it. Not announce who's supposed to be the number one contender less than a week before your next pay-per-view for WrestleMania, and then, you know, announce who the number one contender for the title is at WrestleMania then. No, you have these qualifying matches. And whatever happened to all this stuff? Like, why can't people fight in number one contendership matches? It blows my mind. You know, back in the day, they used to have matches where guys would fight up against other guys, and if a guy got hot, he would be the guy that goes up against the champion. Now it just seems like it's like, oh, we'll just do whatever we want to do because it makes sense to us and it looks good on paper, you know. And I'm thinking that the reason they're doing this is because of the fact that Drew McIntyre was robbed of his moment last year at WrestleMania due to the fact that COVID kept basically everybody out of the building. And I'm thinking they're going to try to repeat what they do, and I think that's just a bad idea. Yeah, and there has been talks that they might have actually leaked their next Hall of Fame class member. That's just WWE is just stupid. I actually just saw that before I actually went live too, Jay, and it's kind of crazy that that's the way it went. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. Bobby Lashley did come out. Him and MVP went and addressed the fans. Drew McIntyre came out and talked about how him and Bobby Lashley were very similar to who they were. They were in WWE back, over 10 years ago. Bobby Lashley kind of just floundered around wherever they had him. He made a name for himself a little bit in ECW, becoming ECW World Champion. He fought Umaga at the Battle of the Billionaires. He was Donald Trump's pick. Umaga was Vince McMahon's pick. He actually was victorious in that. And then he got moved to the main roster. And for whatever reason, only Bobby Lashley will probably know, he was disgruntled and he left WWE. Drew McIntyre was in a very, very horrible marriage with a woman who was a psychopath, developed a drinking problem, and WWE, fired him because of the fact that he had a drinking problem. And, luckily for them, the both of them, got back on their feet, reestablished themselves. Bobby Lashley did the Bellator thing. Drew McIntyre fought, overseas and then came back and worked for Impact Wrestling. They both reestablished themselves. They both dominated over there at Impact. They're both former TNA World Champions, and they both deserve to come back. They both are at a high level. Personally, as a wrestling fan, I want to see Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship because I know it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. Those two are going to beat the piss out of each other, and I enjoy matches like that. And I have a feeling that that's what's going to happen tomorrow between McIntyre and Sheamus. I think they're both going to beat the bloody piss out of each other tomorrow. That's why I think they should definitely have made tomorrow's match a number one contenders match. But what do I know? I'm just brainless, right? So there was that. It looks like they're really starting to do this whole thing where it's going to end up being The Miz and John Morrison versus Damian Priest and Bad Bunny. I had a feeling that was going to be the case. The Miz did attack Bad Bunny last week, I believe it was, with a guitar. And they really are just kind of building towards that being the match. And now we understand why they did what they did with The Miz, although it was kind of they really wasted the Money in the Bank this year. One of these days, I'm going to dedicate an entire episode of the podcast to me just ranting and raving about all the stupid shit WWE has done. So I will let you know when that happens so you can sit yourself up for 7.5 hours of brainless ranting where I probably passed out from freaking exhaustion afterwards. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. But yeah, it does look like that. I think that's kind of like they did the whole thing with, like Jay was saying, where Bad Bunny gave the 24/7 title to the greatest champion in WWE history, R-Truth. So I'm curious to see where they go going forward. They know that Bad Bunny is going to be somehow, some way involved in one of these matches. His wrestling can't be any worse than freaking R-Truth, or I'm sorry, not R-Truth, Snoop Dogg hitting that frog splash on AEW a little more than a month ago. That was fucking terrible. It definitely looks like it's going to be the case with that. All right. We also had the WWE Raw SmackDown titles on the line this past Monday as the New Day went up against the Hurt Business, the team of Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. Very good, entertaining match. You know who you're going to get from those two teams. I would have liked to have seen them go up against each other at WrestleMania. Would have been a great thing. And in the end, the New Day become your WWE Raw Tag Team Champions. 4th time as Raw Tag Team Champions. 11th Tag Team title reign altogether. They are now the all-time leading tag team in tag team reigns. Tag team title reigns. Wow, that is a freaking mouthful. That's what she said. On Monday, 11 times they surpassed the Dudley Boys, who were 10-time tag team champions. I'm happy for the New Day. I love the fact that they are the tag team champions. I think they went a little too quickly taking the belts off of the Hurt Business. I would have liked to have seen them actually go into WrestleMania with the WWE title and the Raw tag team titles, because it would have made them look a lot stronger than they were now that they don't have the tag team titles. But again, what do I know? I'm brainless. Happy for the New Day. After the match, AJ Styles, who, surprisingly enough, is only the tag team titles away from becoming a Grand Slam champion. Not bad for a mid-carder, if you ask me. AJ Styles and Omos came out, and they had a talk with the New Day and everything. And AJ talked about how he wanted to win the tag team titles. Omos said he wanted to win the tag team titles, and here we are now, because AJ Styles and Omos come out to the ring on Monday. They are now the number one contenders for the tag team titles at WrestleMania against the New Day. Like, really? That's really? I don't get that. It's WWE's booking has been just so. I don't even know what's the proper adjective to describe WWE's booking as of late. Stupid. Yeah, I think stupid's pretty good, but I mean, any of y'all can come up with a better adjective to describe the way WWE books things these days. Like last year when Drew McIntyre wins the Royal Rumble and then challenges Brock Lesnar for the WWE title, and then for the Universal Championship, Roman Reigns basically just goes to Goldberg. I'm next. Like, bro. Like, this is what we're going to do? I mean, now we're doing this with the tag team titles. Now Drew McIntyre is going to be fighting Bobby Lashley. I mean, Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre, really? You didn't even give him a freaking number one contenders? I'm going to be really salty about that for quite a bit. It really bothers me that that's the route that they went. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. But anyway, I'd like to see AJ Styles win the tag team titles just because he would be a Grand Slam champion. About almost as much as I would love to see Sheamus win the Intercontinental title so he can win the Grand Slam championship. But we'll see how that goes going forward. Let's see. I got a lot of NXT this week. I have to remember 95% of WWE's creative are soap opera rejects. They really need to bring Freddie Prinze Jr. back into the equation, because I think they were at their best when Freddie Prinze was writing for them. I miss the days of bookers. Jay, you know what I'm talking about. The days of when they actually had bookers book the matches instead of like writing up these stupid ass storylines. Bookers would have matches where you have Randy Savage getting attacked by Jake the Snake with a snake, where you have writers who come up with ideas like Katie Vick. So, which gets thrown out 3 weeks after they start talking about the Katie Vick storyline. So, well, that's WWE at its finest. But what do I know? All right, I think. Is there anything else? Anything else you all want to talk about on Raw before I move on to the next subject? Anything you guys want to bring up? You guys have any questions you'd like to ask the brainless one? I'm all ears. We could talk about anything. You guys, anything else Raw related? No, I got a lot on NXT this week. Believe it or not. So let's see what else we got. I think I'm going to go into AEW real quick. On AEW this week, one of the matches we got was Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley going up against the Good Brothers, who are no longer the Impact Tag Team Champions. But they did have a match against Anderson and Gallows, and Moxley and Eddie Kingston went over on the Good Brothers in a pretty solid match. At the end of the match, Kenny Omega came out, started attacking. He brought out a chair. They went after Eddie Kingston's ankle, really sold that. Probably better than almost as good as the explosion at the end of the AEW pay-per-view that nobody really, enjoyed the ending of. And in the process, the Young Bucks actually came out to get the save to try to stop them from doing the same thing to Moxley that they did to Kingston. The Good Brothers wanted them to do the Too Sweet, and the Young Bucks were like, no, we're not doing that. I'm still kind of like on the fence of how I feel about this partnership between Impact and AEW. I think it's good that some of these guys wouldn't necessarily get the exposure that they would. Most of the guys from Impact, guys like Eddie Edwards, who could probably gain a little bit from getting more exposure, as opposed to like Kenny Omega. But excuse me. But yeah, I mean, either way, pretty solid match. We also got ourselves Cody Rhodes going up against Pentagon. Pretty solid match there as well. Pentagon, I'm a huge fan of him. Him and Ray Phoenix are two grossly underrated wrestlers in just the wrestling industry. Very solid match. Cody Rhodes did go over on Pentagon, and Pentagon did attack him after the match. So I think that's not the end of what we're going to see. And the Nightmare family came out and got the rescue. Obviously, that could lead to something going forward because with them, Phoenix, Pentagon, and Pac, they could actually have a match with like Cody, Dustin, and whoever. But solid match nonetheless. And then one more thing that I wanted to bring up about AEW this week was we got ourselves a lights out, unsanctioned match between Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and former NWA Women's Champion Thunder Rosa. These two have had one hell of a feud. They've really done something with the women's division in AEW. Thunder Rosa is a tremendous in-ring performer. I think that she's the best woman in the world. I mean, Asuka could have an argument with that. Charlotte might have an argument with that. But Thunder Rosa is, for me, she's my favorite of all the women in the wrestling industry. She's been doing great things. I know that NWA is going to be having their pay-per-view coming up. It's either tomorrow or next Sunday. I want to say it is next Sunday. And I'll tell you, I mean, that's and like Jay said, that was the perfect match to end the feud with. They brought out all the stops for that. Thunder Rosa got attacked with a crush before the match even started. The two of them went back and forth. I enjoyed it. Being the devil's advocate that I am, I had to, I just nitpick little things. Thunder Rosa has Shotzi Blackheart syndrome where she can't swing a chair. It just looked like she struggled to swing the chair when she was going after Britt Baker. I mean, other than that, pretty solid match. They beat the hell out of each other. I love the fact that they brought the thumbtacks into the equation. They had table spots and all that stuff, and that ending she slammed Britt Baker in the thumbtacks, and Britt Baker kicked out. Britt Baker put her finisher on Thunder Rosa in the thumbtacks, and how they just kept mentioning the thumbtack. She rolled her in she rolled her in the thumbtacks, and just like all the emphasis they put on the thumbtacks when the thumbtack spots happened and everything. And just like Thunder Rosa coming out and hitting, for the life of me, I don't remember the name of the move, through the table on the outside of the ring to get and that was an awesome way to end that match. Kudos to the two of them. I was very impressed with the two of them. If that was Thunder Rosa's last match as a member of AEW, since she's going to be going back to NWA, then that's one hell of an exclamation point that she left. I'm excited to see where it goes going forward with her. She is going to have a match for the number one contendership for Serena Deeb's NWA Women's Championship at their next pay-per-view. For the life of me, I don't remember who she's like. I forget the name of the woman she's fighting, and this would be the part where Jay's like, "This is why you're supposed to write it down." Yeah, it's one thing I forgot to write down this week, Jay. I'm brainless. Camille. She's fighting Camille Brickhouse. And the winner of that match is going to be getting the number one contendership against Serena Deeb once she comes back from having a knee surgery, I believe. But that was AEW for this week. All right, what else are we going to talk about? How about we talk a little NXT this week? We did get ourselves a match between Austin Theory and Dexter Lumis. Another pretty solid match between the two of them. Dexter Lumis did go over on Austin Theory. I love that this whole storyline that they've been going on with Dexter Lumis and the way how they found ways to put Indy Hartwell in this storyline and Austin Theory and Johnny Gargano. It's one of the best things that they have down in NXT. Johnny Gargano, ever since he took that criticism because they didn't think he was a character. He was a great wrestler, always been a great wrestler. Didn't have much of a character. He's really defined it. He's done such a great job being a heel. And just with him and Dexter Lumis, I think they're going to have a great match at the NXT TakeOver because it is looking like they're going to be fighting for the North American Championship at NXT TakeOver. And my favorite part was they took a picture after the match, and Dexter Lumis has Austin Theory in his lap after his finishing move that he made him submit to. And Indy Hartwell put on there, I'm jealous of Austin Theory. I just, everything about that is just, it's so perfectly done and so perfectly put together. And as Jay said, that's how you're supposed to build a feud. I 100% agree, Jay. I mean, you and I have been watching wrestling. Both of us have been watching wrestling for over 30 years. We know a thing or two about a thing or two. But I've been enjoying this. I've enjoyed Dexter Lumis since he's been on the main roster. He's got a very unique look to him. He's not a terrible worker in the ring. I think it might be his time to get the title too. I think they have a lot of faith in him. He's definitely somebody I would definitely build around too. So we'll see how that goes going forward. I know that they're starting to build more towards the NXT TakeOver. One thing we did find out was that Finn Balor will be defending the NXT Championship against Karrion Kross, and it will be the main event of NXT TakeOver. I know, shocker, right? They're also going to be building more towards the match between it looks like it's going to be Io Shirai versus Raquel Gonzalez for the NXT Women's Championship. That's going to be an absolute war between the two women on there. Speaking of Raquel Gonzalez, Dakota Kai did have a match this week. She looked really good in the match. I'm curious to see where they're going to go with her. I really feel like she should be the one getting the opportunity to fight for the women's title, but obviously they have more faith in Raquel Gonzalez at this point. She really has been impressing. She had a great showing at the women's War Games match that they had. So we'll see how it goes with NXT TakeOver coming over. JC's Balor dropping into Killer Kross. Karrion Kross. We'll see, Jay. I don't know. I'm going to need some time to make that decision. That is going to be one hell of a podcast you and I are going to have to do the week before WrestleMania because I can see a lot of things going on. So they could keep the title on him. We'll see. It'll be interesting to say the least. But they did have a tag team title match. The two of them teamed up to go up against Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan ended up retaining the tag team titles. Karrion Kross basically attacked Finn Balor before the match was over, which was what cost them the tag team title match from Wednesday. So they're definitely building towards that at NXT TakeOver. What do we got next? The main WrestleMania pay-per-view has been discussed to add an NXT match to the main show. I would love to see that match in the main show, Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross. But, I mean, you're really going to be discounting. Like, you're really pushing this whole two-night extravaganza for NXT TakeOver that, you know, taking your NXT Championship match, which is going to be an absolute slugfest and a slobber knocker and any other adjective that you can think of that JR would call it. I would love to see it at WrestleMania. I said that they should have had it at WrestleMania. If they feel that doing a Kyle O'Reilly versus Adam Cole and having Raquel Gonzalez and Io Shirai are two big enough matches that they can move Kross and Balor to WrestleMania, then I'm with it. I would love to see Karrion Kross have like an actual, like a WrestleMania, like his entrance at WrestleMania would be phenomenal. And if we could possibly get the Demon King in that, oh yeah, sign me up. I'd be all over that. But I do think that ultimately that's going to be the main event of the second night of NXT TakeOver. Alrighty. Speaking of possible matches for NXT TakeOver, this really isn't. This is kind of segueing into what could possibly lead to NXT TakeOver. We had a tag team match between Breezango. The only reason I'm looking is because that is it's still a long ass name. Legado del Fantasma. Hopefully Nicole heard me and I said it right. They had a tag team match. This has been kind of leading up from the last few weeks. They attacked, Breezango. Breezango attacked Legado del Fantasma, which has led to this match that they had on Wednesday. Legado del Fantasma did beat Nicole's favorite tag team, Breezango, on Wednesday. And then Santos Escobar came out and started calling out Jordan Devlin, who also happens to be the NXT UK Cruiserweight Champion. And lo and behold, Jordan Devlin actually comes out. It's been so long since the last time I watched NXT UK, and I feel bad about it because I really enjoy great wrestling, and that is what is in the UK is great wrestling. But I didn't even know that Jordan Devlin was a face. Like, they were cheering him on it when he came out there and everything. He came out, cut a hell of a promo. If it leads to the two of them fighting for the unification of the Cruiserweight Championship, I'd be all on board with that. They'd be very similar, very different, but very similar, if that makes any sense, their styles, Santos Escobar, more of like the Lucha Libre. Jordan Devlin, the student of Finn Balor, their styles will definitely mesh very well. Similar but different is the best way to describe the two of them, and I think they would put on one hell of a show against TakeOver. And that's what it looks like it is that we're going to be getting. Very cool that we did get Jordan Devlin back in the United States for the first time, and I think it was over a year since he won the Cruiserweight title, and then that whole Me Too movement that came out, which led to Santos Escobar winning the Cruiserweight Championship from Rockstar Spud. I had to say it like that. All right. We also had Tommaso Ciampa went up against Marcel Bartel in a one-on-one match. And pretty solid match. I mean, it's Tommaso Ciampa. You know what you're going to get out of him. And after the match, Ciampa came out and he was beating up on the guys from Imperium. And who comes out? Walter. That guy right there came out, Walter. Walter did go out there. He hit Tommaso Ciampa with a power bomb. And I was like, somebody check on Ciampa. He has the neck issues. He had the surgery not too long ago, a couple of years ago. And I was like, wow. I'm like, he really, really ate that freaking power bomb the way he did. It was great to see Walter. If this is going to lead to Walter versus Ciampa at NXT TakeOver, yeah, I would be on board with that. Even if it's for the UK title or if it's not for the UK title, I want to see Walter at NXT TakeOver. I want to see Walter at NXT TakeOver. You put your best guys on your biggest show of the year. I don't care what anybody says. And because it's WrestleMania weekend, that de facto makes that NXT TakeOver the biggest takeover of the year. I need Walter, and I would love to see him and Ciampa go at it. So that is two NXT UK people who came in this week on regular NXT. We also got the last point I wanted to bring up from NXT TakeOver, just because that's the kind of guy I am. We got LA Knight, FKA Eli Drake. I will never get comfortable calling him LA Knight. I don't care if he helped with the name or didn't help with the name. I'm sorry. I cannot call somebody LA Knight, especially because Eli Drake was such a badass name. But anyway, Eli Drake did go up against August Gray on NXT this week. It was his debut match. He's had quite a few vignettes and everything. I think he's got a chance to be something for them. Look really good in the ring. I will tell you, his move is kind of like, the best way to describe it is if you take the Stone Cold Stunner and the finishing move the Beverly Brothers used to do and combine it, and that is what Eli Drake's finishing move was. He looked really solid in his debut. After the match, Bronson Reed came out, ripped up, put his jacket on, ripped it up. So now we're going to be getting LA Knight versus Bronson Reed at NXT TakeOver. I'm excited just because I'm a huge Eli Drake fan, and I like to see where this goes with him. Kudos to him for that. What do we got here? My question is given. I want to see more. Stupid phone. My question is given how long Walter's been in NXT UK and now in NXT US, when will Vince start drooling over him and consider him for a call-up? Well, I know, Jay, when they first were trying to negotiate with signing Walter to a contract, that Walter was very adamant about how he wanted to stay in Europe. And he didn't want to go to the main roster, probably just too much of the travel and everything like that. And he wasn't ready to move on to the States. I think that once he's ready, he will make the call to Vince. And I'll tell you, he'll probably have all the belts once it's all said and done, all at the same time, even the Cruiserweight and the Women's Championships. I think that they have a chance and an opportunity to make a fuck ton of money off of Walter. And I'm really hoping that that's going to happen at some point. I just enjoy watching him work. I really do. And I think he would be an absolute asset to Vince McMahon and to the main roster and just to WWE altogether because he's going to make them a fuck ton of money. So I'm curious when that's going to happen. Oh, shit. I see I missed something this week from Raw that I put in my Smackdown notes because you already know. We did have Asuka return from her concussion that she suffered against Shayna Baszler. She was in a match this week. I believe it was against Shayna Baszler. Looked like she didn't miss a beat or anything. Not like she was out for like months and everything. But, Asuka did come out. So it's safe to say that Asuka will more likely than not be at WrestleMania defending the Raw Women's Championship. Now who her opponent's going to be where it gets really interesting. So we'll see where that goes. And, just like with everything else, like I'm looking at the card for tomorrow's Fastlane. There is no Raw Women's Championship match on the card. Or any kind of Raw Women's match on the card. But glad to see Asuka is back, and that means that her concussion is not as serious as it could potentially be. All right, we are going to move it over to SmackDown. One of the things we got on SmackDown this week was Dominic and Rey Mysterio went up against the Street Profits. What was interesting about that was that you had Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode doing the commentary for the match. Dominic, there's parts of how Dominic, and I'll tell you right now, I'm probably gonna critique the shit out of this poor kid until probably the next 2 or 3 years. Being a wrestling fan as long as I have and watching his father wrestle for 25 years, I got to get out of the mindset that he is not going to be as good as his father. It doesn't work out that way. Sometimes, for every Randy Orton, you got Ted DiBiase Jr. For every Dustin and Cody Rhodes, you got, I don't remember, Manu, whatever the hell the Samoan's name was that was part of that. Damn, that's a pretty sad thing. For every, you get the point. I'm not going to beat that to death. But Dominic, there's parts about him that I'm like, all right, the kid's actually really good. There was just points last night you could still tell that he's really green in the ring. I'm not going to give up on Dominic yet. He should have been down at NXT. I'm sorry. You should have had him down at this Performance Center training. You should have had him go up, just go through the whole cycle of the way you're supposed to go. I get the fact that his dad's near the end of the road, and more likely than not, it's going to lead to Dominic versus Rey at WrestleMania, where, it's going to end, Rey's career, he'll do the honors for his son at WrestleMania. He did that one move where he jumped outside of the ring to attack. I think it was Chad Gable, if I'm not mistaken. And, but like when he went to go do the 619, like you could really tell that he was very guarded on how he was going to hit how he was going to hit the 619 because you knew it was going to get a reverse. And I'm like, no, you can't be. I mean, his clunkiness is not as bad as it used to be, and I just I just don't. I don't know. I'm probably going to critique the shit out of this kid like I'm Dave Meltzer watching a Kenny Omega match or any other wrestling match for that matter. Jay said Ted's failure was partially his fault and partially due to being injury prone. He lost passion for the business. And it's like, it's one thing because it's like, Cowboy Bob Orton was Cowboy Bob Orton. The thing that Cowboy Bob Orton was infamous for was the fact that he sold the shit out of that injury to his arm for years when he wore that cast. Hell of a heel, hell of a wrestler and everything like that. But his son has so surpassed him. Mr. Perfect was another example. I mean, nothing against Curtis. I mean, obviously, if you watch this podcast, we love Curtis Axel. Curtis Axel might be the favorite wrestler of the entire Evan Marks podcast. He is an OG Hall of Famer, and you'll get the point later on during the episode. But it was hard for Ted DiBiase Jr. to live up to the caliber of what his father was. Ted DiBiase, in my opinion, is one of the greatest heels of all time. The $1 Million Man? Are you kidding me? When he used to come out there with the money and have the kids bounce the basketball or all that stuff. I mean, Ted DiBiase was, in my opinion, the best heel of the 80s to the early 90s. And then Vince McMahon became a thing. And then, he held that title for a little bit until the Big Boss Man came back from WCW and, dragged the Big Show's dad's coffin with his cop car and then fed Al Snow his dog. And Jessica does agree with me on the whole Dominic Mysterio thing. I really do think he should have ended up in NXT. He would be better suited down there. They have a lot of guys that would work very well with him. Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, Pete Dunne. I mean, even Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch would have been guys that could have worked well with him. You could have had the Lucha House Party go down there and help him out. Working with Santos Escobar would have been a good thing. Raul Mendoza, all those guys that are down there. I mean, he would have been better suited to work down there, especially with the trainers that they have, especially Shawn Michaels, who's down there working with a lot of these guys. I get why they did it, but it's coming from the brainless one. It's a no-brainer that he should not have been on the main roster that quickly. And Jay said Axel was doomed when Vince refused to let him carry on the family name. But we never would have gotten Axel Mania if he carried on the family name. That's all I'm going to say. Also, I don't think a Hennig would have been knocked out the way he was at the 2015 Royal Rumble if he was a Hennig. Or the Perfect Son. But alrighty. Well, anyway, going back to it, Rey Mysterio and Dominic were able to pick up a victory against the Street Profits. And I just love Dawkins and Ford's reaction to losing to that match. Like, they were like, what just happened? And then the Varsity Club or whatever the hell, Otis Dosevich and Chad Gable are calling themselves, came out and they cut a promo and everything. And that led to a little bit of a melee. And then we got ourselves Dominic and Rey Mysterio versus Otis Dosevich and Chad Gable. But this time, the Street Profits were on commentary with Rude and Ziggler and, Cole and Corey Graves and all those guys. Again, that was the match that I was like, all right, they really did not sell we knew he was going to get the reversal on the 619. Maybe he was just a little gassed. Rey Mysterio is still Rey Mysterio. I don't care what anybody says. I respect the hell out of Rey. And I've been entertained by Rey for a long time. Hell of a worker. Dominic still needs to get the rough around the edges. They just got to smooth those parts out, and he'll be fine. And then Otis Dosevich did get the victory in the second match of the tag teams. He hit that, whatever they're going to call that that splash from the second row, jumped all the way from the corner to the middle of the ring to hit the finisher. Heel Otis is God. That's all I'm going to say. Heel Otis is God. I love it. I am so on board with heel Otis. That was one of those things that I had that brief moment where I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. and just keep giving me heel Otis. I am 100% on board with it. Otis Dosovich deserved better than what he was getting, and now he's getting it, baby. As much as I think they're going to lead to him and Chad Gable fighting in some kind of combination for the tag team titles, I would love to see Otis win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I would mark out that night. See what I did there? I'm a mark. All right, then what do we got here? Sami Zayn was put in a match with King Corbin. Very interesting to see two heels and everything. And what we were supposed to get was the final shot of the documentary that Sami Zayn has been paying these cameramen to film for weeks and weeks and weeks. And he's been trying to get people involved, and like you see it. And my favorite part was that Kevin Owens came in there, and Sami Zayn had asked Kevin Owens to be a part of his documentary. KO said, I don't know what you're talking, I don't want to do this. What the hell has happened to you and all this stuff. And he keeps asking Sami, who is they that have it out for him? And he's like, it's them. They have it out for me. And that's like, Sami just kills it every single week. And he asked KO, and KO declined. He was like, well, can you at least come down the ringside and see what I'm talking about so you can see that these referees have it out for me and everything? And Kevin Owens just, agreed to do that, and he was down there. He was doing commentary for it. Yeah, they are going to be dragging out the documentary crap all the way through. Jay, I love that shit. You know me. I love stupid shit. So I love this whole documentary thing, and I think it's going to have its blow-off is going to lead to what I think is going to lead to. If they use this documentary footage and actually give us a WWE Network, soon to no longer be WWE Network documentary on the Sami Zayn conspiracy theory thing, I would be 100% on board with it. I'd like to see what they do with it. If it turns out to be shit, then it was a waste of time. But if they actually do something with it and add it to the library, I'm on board with it. But Sami went up against King Corbin. King Corbin went over in the match. And after the match, Sami, hit a haluva kick. To Kevin, he hit Kevin Owens in the head with that kick. Sami Zayn, for a brief moment, was my favorite wrestler in the entire wrestling universe. After hitting Kevin Owens in the head with the kick, and it really does look like they're going to be giving us Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. And as much as we've seen that match 2,387 times, give it to me one more time. I want to see the two of them at WrestleMania. Rumors they're going to be debuting the final product of Sami Zayn's documentary during Mania itself. I want to see it. I really do, Jay. Call me brainless. Call me whatever you want to call me. I want to see how it looks. But I do think we're going to get Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, the BFFs, to fight for the 9 millionth time at WrestleMania. Which is, two guys growing up as best friends would want to have, don't you think? I'd want to fight at WrestleMania. I'd fight anybody at WrestleMania, though. Specifically, the late, great King Kong Bundy, which I never got my match. All right, what else we got? I don't even want to get into the whole women's matches that we had because it's so stupid. I didn't think that Nia Jax should have been fighting Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's Championship, 2 days before the pay-per-view where Sasha and Bianca Belair will be teaming up against Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax for the SmackDown Women's Championships. I really don't think they should have been the tag team champ in that match altogether. Baszler and Nia, I like Shayna Baszler. That's all I'm going to say about that tag team. But after the match, Natty Neidhart and Tamina Snuka took out Bianca Belair, beat the snot out of her. It's going to be interesting to see if that plays into something going into Sunday. Do we still get that match? Do we get a different match? Are they going to use this to their advantage for the storyline? So we'll see how that goes going forward, especially with the pay-per-view tomorrow. Jessica, I'm going to agree with you. Daniel Bryan's promo last night and Edge versus Jey Uso were the two best parts, and I'm glad that you said it because that's a segue into the last part of SmackDown that I wanted to get into really quickly. Daniel Bryan did cut a promo. It was one of his better promos last night. I enjoyed Daniel Bryan. He talked about how he was going to make Roman Reigns tap out, and Roman Reigns came out and said, nobody makes me tap out. He's like, I'm the tribal chief, and Daniel Bryan called him a fraud, and just the two of them went back and forth. I am excited for their match tomorrow night. I think it's going to be one hell of a wrestling match, and if Roman Reigns can wrestle to the caliber of his opponent, which would be Daniel Bryan, I think we're going to get one. We're going to have a really good one tomorrow night in the main event. But because it was that match tomorrow, we got our main event from SmackDown last night, which was Jey Uso versus Edge. Very important because that last night was the first time that Edge wrestled a match on SmackDown since 2009. It was the first time that him and Jey Uso had gotten into the ring against each other, considering they've both been in there, around the same time. Jey Uso's been there for a while. I want to say Jey Uso. I'm pretty sure I'd bet almost any amount of money that Jey Uso was part of the roster when Edge was still an active wrestler back in 2009. Hell of a match. The two of them put one hell of a match on there. I didn't really dig Edge's attire. Not that it really matters, but I don't know. I felt there was a point where I looked away and I looked back and I was like, is that AJ Styles? And I'm like, oh no, that's Edge. And I'm like, ugh. I didn't agree with that attire. But again, a solid match. Nonetheless, Edge went over on Jey Uso. So Edge will be the special enforcer for the Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan match tomorrow night at Fastlane. And after the match, Roman Reigns did come out and hit Edge with a spear. So it looks like I really do think it's going to end up being – I don't know why. I think it's going to end up being a triple threat match at WrestleMania. If there was going to be a triple threat match at WrestleMania for a title, it's going to be obviously going to be one of those two. I hope they don't do both. I hate major titles being defended in multi-people matches or more than two people matches. I know that Jay's going to chime in and say, well, it worked for Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30. Well, that was the only other time I could really think of that it actually worked. So, yeah. I haven't done that yet. Yeah. But, all right. So that was Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and AEW for this week. So it's time to get into our predictions. So, for Fastlane, and just to let you know, and look for Edge to screw Bryan over and give Roman the win by DQ. To be fair, Jay, Daniel Bryan could also win the match because Edge DQ gets Daniel Bryan DQ. Either I got a feeling that something's going to happen and it's going to end up being a triple threat match. I just call it a hunch. So not only do I have my predictions for Fastlane for tomorrow, I have Nicole's predictions for Fastlane tomorrow. We'll see how this goes. There's nothing crazy going on. There's no bets. I will never. You heard these words coming straight from this brainless mouth. I will never, ever, ever do the Man of Lantern again. I'm still feeling the effects of that shit. I will never do that ever again. You have a better, as John Candy once said in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, one of the greatest movies of all time, you have a better chance of picking up sticks with your butt cheeks than you do of me doing the Man of Lantern ever again. Maybe we could do something like, loser buys Starbucks or some shit like that, which means we both win. But, yeah, her and I did our predictions. Jay, feel free to chime in with your predictions for the pay-per-view tomorrow. All right, the first match we're going to have, it's the U.S. title where Ali takes on Matt Riddle. They had a match this week, for the U.S. title. Riddle to go over. I think that I think it's too early to take the title off of Matt Riddle. So Nicole and I both went with Matt Riddle for tomorrow. Jay, who do you got if you're on there? Who do you got for Matt Riddle and Mustafa Ali? Side note, I cannot believe it's been over an hour and I have yet to mention Slapjack. Slapjack should be on the show tomorrow too. So that'll make things very interesting. But again, Nicole and I both have Riddle for tomorrow. In the Intercontinental title match, we have Apollo Crews going up against Big E. Nicole and I actually had a very in-depth conversation about this match just before the podcast. She was kind of torn on how she thought she was going to do this. So I hope I didn't dissuade her from her pick, but her and I are both going with Big E to win. I think somehow, some way, Big E walks out the Intercontinental title, whether he wins it or he retains it. One way or another, he's going to retain it. All right. I hate this stupid phone. Riddle retains. I can't see Retribution last too much longer. That group is going to implode on Ali and then go their separate ways, which is just that would just be a waste of that whole Retribution storyline. And I think that the only one that has a chance to, the only two, in my opinion, that can have a chance to save face from that storyline are Donovan Dijakovic and Mia Yim. All right, Jay. Jay is going to go with Apollo Crews. I like it. All right. Jay's going with Riddle. Jay's going with Crews. All right, I like it. All right, we're also going to get Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Of course, I left the Nakamura action figure up on the bookshelf. So Nakamura versus Seth Rollins. It'll be Rollins. I want to say it's Rollins' first singles pay-per-view match since he returned at the Royal Rumble. Either way, we got this match a few years back at Survivor Series when Seth Rollins was the Intercontinental Champion and Shinsuke Nakamura was the U.S. Champion. The two of them had a great match that night. I think that they're going to have another great match tomorrow. Somehow, some way, Cesaro is going to make an appearance during this match. You know what? I originally was going to go with Seth Rollins. I said it rather quickly, but I think that Nakamura is going to win, and Cesaro gets the hockey assist. And Jay and Nicole are both going with Seth Rollins for this one. Now, Rollins wins this match. There's a feud that can be extended into a Mania match on night one. I think we still get Cesaro versus Rollins at WrestleMania. And Nicole has chimed in and said, goodness gracious. Well, Mustafa did come out and say they haven't really had enough airtime to evolve the storyline, so Retribution, that's all it says, because for whatever reason, it's not letting me see more. See more butts. Wouldn't be something. So Retribution imploding wouldn't be something people lose sleep over. I'm going to lose sleep over just because that's just how I am. So, because I'm just a glutton for punishment. And the match that really nobody cares about, we are getting Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman. We both have Shane McMahon winning, Nicole and I. Jay, I would really love to hear your 2 cents of what you think is going to happen to this match. That's all I can say. This is a match I really could give 2 shits, a rat's ass, or a flying fuck about, if I'm being totally honest. I thought this was going to be a match they're going to do at WrestleMania. We could still have a match between them at WrestleMania. I would have loved to have seen Shane do something retarded off of the freaking pirate ship in Tampa Bay during the match. Jay's going with Braun Strowman in a squash. Wow. I'll tell you what, man. If the Mean Street Posse comes back tomorrow, I'll do something ridiculous. Nicole is hoping that it gets pulled from the cards since the advertising for Fastlane doesn't show either of them at all. I don't even have words. The match shouldn't even be there, but that's just me. But what do I know? All right. Nicole, you and I really haven't differentiated that. I had to change the Nakamura one really because that was I mean, we don't have any matches that you and I really disagree on. This is a time waster. Strowman should be much better served being in a match with almost anyone else on the roster than that. Come on. Than that spot monkey trying to live through his younger glory years. What do they expect us to see? Good point. I can't argue that one. This is just Shane just being Shane McMahon. It's a McMahon being a McMahon. There's nothing else you can really add to that to make me think otherwise. So now we're getting to the nitty gritty of the pay-per-view. We are going to have Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax go up against Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair for the SmackDown Women's Championships. Nicole and I both think it's going to be Baszler and Jax. I'd like to see if this attack that Natty Neidhart and Tamina Snuka did on Bianca Belair knocks her out for the thing tomorrow so that her and Sasha don't fight somebody else coming in there and fighting Baszler and Nia Jax for the titles. I'm viewing this match as I used to, refer to it as the smoke break, bathroom break match because nobody really gives a shit about it. I really don't care. I don't need to watch Nia Jax. I could force a bowel movement out just so I don't have to watch that no talent fucking bitch. Probably hurt. I mean, you're really risking, the only match of the women's division that you have properly booked heading into WrestleMania by having one of those two get injured by that buffoon Nia Jax. Nia Jax shouldn't be fighting anybody. She should be doing something else, anything else but wrestling. I'm sorry. That fat cunt should not be on the fucking TV screen for any wrestling promotion. It is fucking terrible. No. I'm done. You know who loses that match? Me, because I have to watch Nia Jax tomorrow. And I'm starting to think that I actually hate Nia Jax more than I hate Kenny Omega. That says a lot, because I fucking hate Kenny Omega. They're 1 and 2, and Kevin Owens is 3. Don't be surprised that if Sasha does have to go apparently alone, that an old friend of hers agrees to a one-time reunion for just one night. Winky face. Gee, I wonder if that's going to be Ding Dong. Hello! Great. Can't wait to see Bayley tomorrow. All she has is a Samoan drop and everything else is clunky. You can see everyone else setting her up for all her moves. So Jay, the real question is: you got Baszler and Nia Jax, or do you have Sasha and Bianca? Or am I just wasting my breath asking you that question? Because I already know the answer. This is for the questions that don't have an answer. The midnight glances and the topless dancers, the candle freaks, cars packed with speakers, the G's with the 40s and the chicks with beepers. Sorry. Anything can happen on this podcast. Trust me, I've seen it all. All right. Moving on. All right. We have a no-holds-barred match between Sheamus and Drew McIntyre. Baszler and Jax retain, but we see some more dissent between them, eventually leading them to their splits. I wouldn't be surprised by that. All right. We are getting ourselves a no-holds-barred match between Sheamus and Drew McIntyre. I'm telling you right now, this is a main event caliber. This is a WrestleMania caliber match that we're getting at Fastlane tomorrow. The two of them are going to beat the holy hell out of each other. I have been thoroughly entertained by this. This is the best rivalry going at this very moment right now. There's just too many moving parts for the Universal Championship on SmackDown. As much as I love Edge, I really don't think he should have won the Royal Rumble, but what do I know? Anyway, I'm excited for this one. Again, I like I said earlier in the podcast, this match should have been for the number one contendership at WrestleMania. It should have been for the number one contendership for the Legend title at WrestleMania. Jay says, Drew wins, but there's a chance we see some fuckery here from the Hurt Business and Bobby Lashley sticking their noses into the match. I can see that. I even said to Nicole that that's a possibility that Bobby Lashley gets involved in this match in some way, shape, or form. We all have Drew McIntyre, though. All right. 2 more matches left. We have Alexa Bliss versus Randy Orton. Wait. No, that's going to be a typo. Hold on a second. Nicole! I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Nicole! She actually wrote out the card here, so I just want to make sure I'm reading this properly. Okay? Hey, you're the one who wrote the card down for tomorrow at Fastlane, correct?
Yes.
Is that a typo? Am I reading this properly? Does this really say that Randy Orton, a 14-time world champion, is going up against Alexa Bliss, a woman?
It's not fucking happening.
But that's an actual confirmed match for the card tomorrow.
Yes.
Is Alexa Bliss versus Randy Orton. Alexa Bliss versus Randy Orton.
Yeah.
Are you sure this isn't from like a faux wrestling account? This is actually happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
Alexa Bliss, who's all 5 feet tall, going against Randy Orton, who is the only man who has hit more women with RKOs than anybody else has ever hit another woman with a move in wrestling history.
I have a feeling he's going to set up for the RKO, and that's when the Fiend's coming back. It's not even a match. It's going to be one of those cinematic things. It's an overcooked storyline.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that you wrote that properly, that you got this from a legitimate site, that this match is actually happening tomorrow.
It was announced on TV.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Really? Randy Orton versus... Randy Orton is fighting Alexa Bliss in a wrestling match tomorrow. I knew that was happening. I've seen it. I just wanted to make sure I'm having a little bit of fun with this. What does Cousin Jay, the brains of the brainless podcast, say? All right. This is going to be fun. There's not going to be a clean finish. Right before it appears, Orton punts Alexa in the head. The lights go out, and Wyatt appears, grabbing Orton by the leg into a Sister Abigail. I think it's something like that can happen. I think that the Fiend can kind of rip through the ring and drag Orton. So Jay is going with a fuck finish. So does this mean you think it's going to end in a no contest, Jay? Do you think that? Is the Fiend gonna? Because Nicole put a possible no contest with the Fiend returning. I have Alexa Bliss winning. I have Alexa Bliss somehow, some way, finding a way to win this match. I think that it's very, very possible. I would love to lean more towards no contest. I think that's the best chance that it's going to be a no contest. Jay is also going with no contest. I'm going Alexa Bliss, baby. Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah. That's that. And lastly, and certainly not least, we have Daniel Bryan going up against the Tribal Chief, the head of the table, Roman Reigns, for the Universal Championship, with Edge as the special enforcer. The bell may not even go off to start the match. I like it. Nicole thinks that it's going to be some kind of cinematic chicanery. I think Alexa Bliss just wins. One way or another, Alexa Bliss wins. So we got Daniel Bryan versus the big dog, the Tribal Chief, the head of the table, the only 5-time Marquee Award 5 years in a row. He has won a Marquee Award, the only wrestler in the history of the business to ever do it. Roman Reigns, five-time Marquee Award winner for wettest hair. Goes up against Daniel Bryan, who has won multiple Marquee Awards throughout the years for different categories. But you can't beat consistency, Daniel. And that's exactly what Roman Reigns has been. He's been consistently the best wrestler on the main card in WWE, in any promotion. He makes fucking Dr. Derp, Kenny Omega look like me in the ring. Roman Reigns is the best wrestler right now. He's still doing his best work, and I'm telling you right now, he's going to win. There's probably going to be some kind of chicanery with it. This whole card has a chance for chicanery throughout the entire thing. It really does. Everything that could happen. It could lead to chicanery. Nicole and I both have Roman Reigns winning. Cousin Jay, what do you got? Roman wins by DQ after Edge costs Bryan the match, either with a spear or with an outside object. So we all have Roman Reigns winning this match one way or another. That is pretty impressive. It literally is going to be a very interesting card tomorrow. I think that this is going to... I don't remember the last time Fastlane, which is typically the pay-per-view before WrestleMania, has so much that can be implicated into WrestleMania, or so many implications leading to WrestleMania ever. I don't think it's ever happened. I'm curious to see how this goes tomorrow. They could either just dump a whole bunch of bullshit on us for tomorrow, or they could just keep people going, what the fuck? Because, if you think about it, we've been asking when Jimmy Uso is going to be coming back. I didn't even mention the fact that Jimmy Uso can get involved in that match. We've been talking about when's the Fiend going to come back. This is basically one of your last opportunities to get the Fiend back if you want to do something. What are you going to do, wait for WrestleMania for the Fiend to come back? There's just a lot of different things that they can add to this. And tomorrow is a very, very important pay-per-view in the road to WrestleMania. And I feel like Bob Dole. Sorry. All right. Time to get into my favorite part of the podcast. And as Jay pointed out, and with the Mania card only having 2 confirmed matches right now, tomorrow night makes things even more important. I actually think it's 3 or 4 now, Jay, because I think that the Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre was confirmed on Monday, adding on to Roman Reigns versus Edge for the title at WrestleMania, and Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair for the SmackDown Women's title at WrestleMania. And I believe that AJ Styles and Omos going up against the New Day for the tag team titles was also confirmed for WrestleMania. I'm not 100% positive about that, but I'm pretty sure that's also on there. But I do know for a fact that McIntyre and Lashley at WrestleMania was confirmed on Monday before Raw even had any matches or anything like that. So now we get into the Brainless's favorite part of the podcast: the good, the bad, and the Brainless. So my good for this week goes to Eric Bischoff getting nominated for the WWE Hall of Fame. I 100%. The title matches are the only ones that have been confirmed. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Okay. My good for this week is Eric Bischoff for the Hall of Fame. This is a well-deserving nomination. I'll tell you, the first 2 nominees that they've announced, they've knocked them both out of the park. I love the fact that Molly Holly got it last week, and I'm happy for Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff is a very, very important person in regards to what wrestling is today. Without his wars with Vince McMahon in the 90s with WCW, and just the fact that he even went into WWE after it was all said and done, his failed attempt at trying to buy WCW before Vince McMahon came in there and bought them out. Eric Bischoff is a very, very important person in the wrestling industry in regards to both WCW and WWE. So Eric Bischoff getting into the Hall of Fame is my good for this week. Jay, do you have a good for this week? I'll give you a quick moment. Should be a fun card tomorrow, by the way. I'm excited for it. A couple of good matches I'm looking forward to. But anyway, My bad for this week is that it looks like they're going to be doing AJ Styles and Omos for the Raw Tag Team titles at WrestleMania. I think that, a lot of people are crucifying this move because of the fact that the New Day just won the titles. I was one of them. Nothing against the New Day. I really do think that the Hurt Business should have had all the titles heading into WrestleMania. It would have made them look stronger. And the fact that you took the titles away from them as quickly as you did was, I just think it was a bad move. And I think that, and it's funny because people are like, oh, this is so stupid. They're not even a tag team and they're just going to get thrust into the tag team title picture. And it's like, oh, Omos hasn't done anything. Well, I like the fact that Omos is actually getting an opportunity at the biggest show of the year to have his debut in a wrestling match on the main roster. It did come out that Omos was the Black Ninja that was in cahoots with Tozawa when he was part of that. Jay's good for this week was the Thunder Rosa match. It was an example of how a feud was supposed to end and something a certain other companies should take notes of on how to end a feud properly instead of letting things drag for months until we all die of boredom from it. Jay, I really wish that you had given us your good before I gave my good because your good would have been my good for this week. The fact that you actually threw shade at WWE for the fact that WWE it's like watching a bunch of fucking dumb fucks come up with stupid I got nothing. But my bad. That is my bad. Styles and Omos for the tag team titles of WrestleMania after taking the titles from the Hurt Business, who just took them off of the New Day back at Elimination Chamber, if I'm not mistaken, or Hell in a Cell was one of those pay-per-views back in December when they took the titles from them. Jay, I'm curious to hear what your bad is for this week, and your brainless as well. But yeah, Styles and Omos for the tag team titles of WrestleMania. I mean, it just kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that, the tag team divisions on both Raw and SmackDown are just absolute shit. I've been saying it for the longest time that I think that AEW has the best tag team division in all of the wrestling of those, and NXT is number 2. Just like I think NXT actually has the best women's wrestling division. And it's like SmackDown's doing the best with what they have. They have the Street Profits and they have Rude and Ziggler, who have kind of formed into a pretty solid tag team and everything. And, like Otis and Chad Gable is doing what they can with that. The Mysterios are a tag team. So at least SmackDown is doing the best with what they have, considering they only have like one legitimate tag team. And Raw, it's just like they just take a pile of shit, throw it on the wall, and see if it sticks. That's all it's been there. So it doesn't surprise me that they're screwing this up. My bad for this week was them not allowing Asuka to get a little bit of simulated revenge on Shayna Baszler for legit knocking her teeth out and giving her a concussion a few weeks ago to help plant the seeds for a match at Mania. Jay, I'm convinced that I don't think Shayna Baszler is going to get that title match at WrestleMania. I have this weird suspicion it's going to be Rhea Ripley that gets the match. They're very high on Rhea Ripley. She was one of my 2 picks to win the Royal Rumble for the women's this year. I wouldn't be surprised if she was the one that ends up fighting Asuka. Hell, I mean, they could still do Becky Lynch. Don't rule anything out. But I do agree that they should have done something if that was the route they were going to go. And this is good because Jay has the brainless already. Come on. There we go. My brainless was them subjecting us to more of this unneeded celebrity pandering with Bad Bunny just gifting the 24/7 title back to R-Truth when we could have given one of the other matches on Raw another 5 to 10 minutes more of airtime. Jay, Bad Bunny was at the Grammys singing with the 24/7 championship. Let me rephrase that. Bad Bunny was performing at the Grammys with the ugliest championship in WWE after the NXT North American Championship. I hate that they've been doing this. Like, this whole pandering to celebrities has been going on for way too long, and I'm starting to not be a fan of it. It's one thing when you want to do like a couple of like You had one dude from ESPN win the 24/7 title. You had, I think it was Kyle Busch was a former 24/7 champion. Rob Gronkowski is a 24/7 champion. Rob Gronkowski is still the only person in the history of the universe to win a WWE championship and a Super Bowl in the same calendar year. Think about that. I just think that the pandering to the celebrities needs to stop. The whole Maria Menounos thing, I love what she's doing. She is definitely helping out like extra causes. I mean, she's part of the whole Warrior nominee for the Hall of Fame and everything. By the way, Shad Gaspard should win the Warrior Award this year. I don't care what anybody says. That man exemplifies what that award is about. But I mean, like Menounos, like I said, Maria Menounos, I don't have a problem with this. Every year, them dragging in some kind of celebrity to be into WrestleMania. You know, it was one thing when Liberace was there dancing with the Rockettes. It was another thing when Muhammad Ali was the special enforcer for the main event of WrestleMania 1. You know, adding Bob Uecker or Regis Philbin or Alex Trebek. You know, Pamela Anderson and Jenny McCarthy being involved at WrestleMania 11's title match. LT in the main event. LT in the main event made a lot of sense because they booked it properly. Like, why do we need Floyd Mayweather there? You know, as much as, Snooki did not look like an embarrassment when she got in the ring, I don't think she should have been there. This whole Bad Bunny thing is so stupid. I don't get why they're doing it. And, and I don't know. I don't know about this whole, like, they care more about the celebrities than they do about their own people. But anyway, my brainless for this week goes to Peacock. So my whole thing about Peacock is, so Peacock has been this new thing that NBC has been coming out with, and they're going to start streaming all their old shows, which includes the shows The Office, Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, all the Law and Orders and all that stuff. I think it's a great idea. You know, I actually have Peacock because I need my fix of Ron Swanson and Dwight Schrute. I'm sorry. But they did hammer out this agreement with WWE to acquire the rights to the network so it'll be streamed exclusively on Peacock, which is fine. You want to do what you got to do. At the end of the day, it's all about making money and how much money you can be making. And my issue is that you've been hammering away at the fact that WrestleMania is going to be the first pay-per-view on Peacock. Fastlane will be the last pay-per-view. WrestleMania is going to be the first one. And it's like, I think this was a bad mistake because as somebody who does have Peacock, I am not allowed to watch Peacock because it's not available on my Fire Stick. So I would have done something like I would have made sure that all the ways you can find ways of getting it streamed from Peacock for your fans, maybe wait till after WrestleMania. Maybe move it over, after WrestleMania from, to Peacock. That and the fact that they're not going to have the entire library on Peacock available for WWE until August. It's just, I think it's stupid. I really do think that it is stupid. I've been pissed off. I even reached out to them and like, oh, we're working on it. And once we get it, all this stuff, taken care of, we'll let everybody know. And I'm like, I need to know. I'm like, I'm going to have people over my house to watch WrestleMania. I'm like, if we can't watch WrestleMania, nobody's going to show up. So I have to find a way to do it. And I don't think everybody's going to want to huddle around me and watch it on my phone. So, not to mention, if you get the no commercials, you're still paying $10 less a month for the network than you were paying for it on its own as the WWE network without the NBC umbrella. That's another way to look at it because I do like the fact that that the $10 does cover the non commercials for Peacock. I just like I would have paid I was paying $5 a month for Ron Swanson and Dwight Schrute. So I would have flipped another $5 to watch Steve Austin too. And Brainless one other thing of note, I noticed that Eddie Guerrero's grave has been changed. Somehow Vicky had her name taken off of it, and a new headstone with just Eddie's name has been put in its place. Interesting. I did not know about that. Who the hell knows why that was done and all that stuff? Because I know that when my grandmother had passed, her brother, her sister, and her brother-in-law, after my grandmother passed, like her brother, her sister, and her brother-in-law had decided they were just going to get like one headstone for all four of them. They're all now, unfortunately, together. Kind of doing, speaking of grave sites and everything. And I would love to one day actually go and visit Eddie's grave site, because that would be somebody I would want, him or Owen Hart's. Unfortunately, you had to go to 2 different countries to get to both of them. So, anywho, so if you like what you've seen, whether you are a first-time watcher or somebody who has been tuning in on a regular basis, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, MARKS, the F and Marks. If you like, follow, and subscribe to us, we will do the same back. It has always been our mission. Good job. And this would be the part where Cousin Jay Blake. And make sure you like and subscribe to the All Elite Marks page, facebook.com/All Elite Marks. Typically on a weekly basis, when we do the podcast, we typically do it on their page. But this week, because you have to have more than half a brain cell to be a moderator on the All Elite Marks page, I am doing it exclusively on our page. It will be shared on their page. But make sure you like us and set up for notifications on the All Elite Marks page on Facebook, so that when we do go back on our original page, you will see this brainless face and Cousin Jay. Yeah! So make sure you're on that. Also, I don't have one of them on. We still have T-shirts. We're trying to, we're selling to everybody. Hit us up at the F and Marks at gmail.com. Let us know what your size is, and we'll see. We'll go from there. I think that's it. Unfortunately, I don't have the music for this, but I will say this, or the picture. It is episode 214, and it is also March 20th of 2021. And today, at an astonishing 2,246 days, F and Marks Hall of Famer Curtis Axel is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Anyway, that's it for episode 214 of the F and Marks podcast. Jay, thanks for tuning in and chiming in when you could. You are the GOAT, and I am the brainless one. That's how it always is. So that's it for episode 214. I am the brainless one. And make sure you mark out with your guac out. See you guys, and thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the pay-per-view tomorrow. And most importantly, hopefully Nia Jax doesn't hurt anybody. See y'all.